Hello, or
Sorry, stupid microphone. Like I tested it before, and then the mute doesn't unmute. I got it. We're good. Sorry. Yes, we're good. All right, there we go. All right, let's see here. Can you hear me now? There we go. Good. I do have a haircut. That's true. I did get finally a haircut. Let me see here. You can hear now. We were yeah. No, we. I got yeah. Okay. Was possibly just talking about cats. That happens. Um, so it's really what? Now it's quiet? Is that what you're telling me? Because it was working just fine a second ago. I don't think I did anything here. Can you hear that? Is that how's that? There we go. Okay. Good. Alberta, we've got hot and humid Seoul, Korea, I'm assuming. Atlanta, also hot and humid. We've got Ontario, no message about whether it's hot or humid. We've got Poland. We've got, let's see here. Does your fez still fit with the haircut? Well, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see. Um, let's see. All right, no problem. Sound is fine. Good to hear. Yep. All right. Loud and clear. Chat is fast today. That's true. You're right. You're not wrong. Can hear you just fine from Dubai. Wow, nice. Topeka, Kansas. Doncaster, England. Rainy Shanghai. You got Eastern Ontario. Excuse me, Stewartstown, Pennsylvania. Chester, England. Paraguay. Belgium. South Africa. Australia. Hong Kong. Minnesota. Bristol. Indiana. All from London, lovely and wet. Windy Las Vegas. We've got a cold and raining Sarawak. I'm not sure exactly where Sarawak is, but neat. Czech Republic. We've got Perth, Australia. Rainy Cincinnati. North Wales. Hot and humid Texas as well. Basement bunker in Ohio. Nice. No priming outside today. I think I might do some priming outside. We'll see how the humidity is. Last I looked, it was like around 70%, which, but early in the morning, usually the humidity goes down a little bit as the day goes on. Depends. And then sometimes it goes back up again at night. So afternoon is generally the best priming time. Prime time? Anyway. Let's see. We've got Wisconsin. We've got Munich. We've got Adam Strange says that, yeah, South Carolina is oddly nice today. Well, that's nice. You got to take it where you get it. Windy in the Bay Area. Morning from New Zealand. It's always humid in Georgia. I've heard that. Yeah, yeah. I've only been to Atlanta twice, and both times I was just in the airport. So, rainy North Wales. Hello from Chile. Got warm North Carolina, USA. Very hot, very humid Kuala Lumpur. Nice. Hello from Slovenia. Ireland. Excellent, excellent. So humid in ATL today, like a warm, wet blanket. Yeah, I mean, we don't get crazy, crazy hot, but there are times where our humidity is 95, 96, 97% in the summer sometimes. So yeah, but we don't usually get like it's a rare time when it is that humid and close to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's happened. It just doesn't happen that frequently, thankfully, here in Wisconsin. Hello from Indonesia. Hello from Kentucky. Greetings from New Hampshire. Greetings from hot Poland. Hot and terrible in Houston. Morning from soon-to-be humid Milwaukee. Yeah, yeah. Let's see here. I might end up doing my priming, I guess, maybe with airbrush if it gets real humid today in my neck of the woods. But that's okay. That's why I bought an airbrush. Well, one of the reasons at least. Hi from Liverpool. Terribly humid in Bayern, Germany yesterday. Today is nice. Good thing I set up a paint area in the basement with ventilation. Yeah, I painted yesterday. So let's see. Yesterday and Friday, I was streaming on Twitch with the folks from the Virtual Gaming Convention, or Virtual Gaming Con. It's a online convention run by Board Game Geek and Dice Tower. They both usually have their separate in-person conventions. I think one's in Orlando and the other one's in Texas. But because of the pandemic, they couldn't do it, so they kind of partnered up and had one virtual gaming convention online thing. And it was a lot of different streaming and this and that and virtual games and all kinds of stuff. Tabletopia, which is a kind of a virtual board gaming website, stuff like that. And so I was part of that. And I was on the main stage on Friday and on Saturday from like 11 a.m. Central to 1 p.m. Central. And I was teaching people how to paint their board game miniatures. And it was cool. Technically I was on my channel, not on their channel, but they were like, I don't know, like embedding it or forwarding it or I don't know. But there was a bunch of people there. It was a lot. So that was really nice. For those of you that don't know, I am starting to do Twitch. I'm going to be doing Friday morning hobby streams going forward, where I'll be sitting on Twitch and Friday mornings, probably starting closer to 10 a.m. instead of 11 a.m. Central. But I'll be painting stuff and talking to people and answering questions. I'm sure there won't be nearly as many folks in the chat going forward as there were on these first two where I, had the virtual gaming con going on. On Friday, I think we peaked out at just shy of 400, like 399 as a maximum. And on Saturday, it peaked out just under 300 or maybe just over 300. So that was cool. That was very nice. It was a great start, honestly, to the hobby streaming stuff. There was a couple little technical glitches here and there and stuff that I'm trying to work on to fix, but it's not too bad. So greetings from the Outer Limits. Good to see you there, VJ Morph. Let me see. What else have we got? Netherlands. We've got when humidity isn't 100%, isn't that just water? Nearly. You would think so, but technically not quite. Good evening from South Africa. Dry and windy. Winter at the moment. Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. Let's see here. Good. Apopka, Florida. I've never heard of Apopka, Florida. That's interesting. Get ready to start working on my first Malifaux minis. Nice. They are. They can be very fiddly to build. They're very, very, very fine, tiny little details. I just made some Necrons. Man, they are a pain to put together. Yeah, certain models can be from them. I found that the regular warriors are actually kind of difficult to build. Not terrible, but yeah, they can be a little. It's just getting those two arms and the gun and all that stuff all lined up. It becomes difficult. So. That picture looks like an album cover. Oh, well, thank you. It's one of the pictures a friend of mine, I had her take it for me when I launched the Pachow kind of hobby hero kind of punk rock shirt there. It's like that one right there. You can get it in the shirt store and whatnot, which is running a little slowly currently because the pandemic. So if you do order stuff from there, which is lovely and helps to support the channel, and then you get a cool shirt or whatever. But I've been noticing it's been taking 2 to 3 weeks for them to print that stuff. So yeah. Let me see here. Good morning from London, magnetizing the Howdah, so I can play the Carnosaur as a wandering monster in Warcry as well. Nice. That's kind of cool. When humidity is 100%, it just means that there is as much humidity in the air as the air can carry. That's science right there. It's good to hear. I wish I had Necrons to put together, but they're all sold out. Yeah, well, from the website, I bet, certainly. Your local shop might have them, depends on your local shop or the local shops that are less local to you, that are maybe a couple of towns over. Depends, yeah. Guillermo says, working on my gnome army for Dragon Rampant. Oh, that's kind of cool. Dragon Rampant from Osprey. I've got Dragon Rampant and Lion Rampant. Lion Rampant is the kind of skirmishy, like medieval, slightly more historical kind of style game, whereas Dragon Rampant is, I think, roughly the same type of rule set, but it is more fantasy. So there's wizards and gnomes and such like that. So they're both those little thin blue books from Osprey. They're cool. Let's see here. Whoops, sorry. Thanks for the vid on the contrast paints. I know which ones to try now. Yeah, and again, those are my personal preferences. Your mileage may vary, but after using them for a year, I've found the ones I keep going back to. I just constantly am like, well, I'm going to go back to this one and go back to this one. And like I said, Apothecary White, Black Templar, Wildwood, Skeleton Horde, Agoros Dunes, Snakebite Leather. There's some other ones as well that I, kind of go back to some more. There's a couple of the lighter blue ones that I want to try to give another chance. Like I kind of almost want to test. I had a lot of people talking about one of the blue ones, and I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. I think it starts with an A. And it's a lighter blue. And I kind of want to give it a try when I do my Night Haunt. But we'll see. I still haven't decided if I want to go with more of a bluish or greenish kind of look. I don't know, like kind of ghost stuff. Like if you go back and look at the original Ghostbusters movie, the ghosts had more of a greenish kind of glow to them in a lot of situations. But if you look at the new one, it had a lot of bluish kind of glow to the ghosts and stuff. So I don't know which way I would want to go on that. I mean, I guess I could kind of split the difference and go blue-green. But yeah, anyway, I haven't figured that out yet. So let's see. My Pachao Hobby Hero shirt turned up really fast, about a week. Well, that's good. I mean, if you ordered it recently, then that's really good. If you ordered it, back before the pandemic, that was the normal time. But right now, I've been noticing it's been a little slow. Let's see. Having a really hard time finding a wide variety of cyberpunk-themed minis, other than Titanforge and Hint. I don't know what Hint is. Sorry. Any recommendations? Cyberpunk-themed minis, you are probably going to want to take a look for a company called Monster Fight Club. Monster Fight Club is actually, I think, got the license to do Cyberpunk Red, which is the official Cyberpunk RPG that the video game coming out is actually based off of, made by Artalisorium. And so anyway, yeah, Monster Fight Club is the company that is making the miniatures. Now, I don't know that you can get STLs from them. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't looked into that. But they did. I know they will be selling miniatures for them for Cyberpunk. So, but you're right. I really like I'm interested very much by the rule set and the kind of aesthetic and the interest. And by rule set, I mean Reality's Edge, which is also another game from Osprey, written by Joe McGuire, I think his name is. He's the guy who did This Is Not a Test, which is another skirmish style, post-apocalyptic kind of like Fallout, but not quite. Anyway, he wrote this Cyberpunk RPG, or not RPG, but Cyberpunk skirmish game that I'm interested in. But you're right, Cyberpunk models, finding actual models for Cyberpunk is kind of difficult. It's a lot of kit bashing if you want to go down that road, which is cool, but it can take a lot more work. So. I dropped $60 on new contrast paints and Wraithbone spray to do an army of orcs because of your recent video. Oh, well, that's good to hear. The Wraithbone the spray is, yeah, I wish the sprays were cheaper, honestly. That is a bummer. But yeah. Aethermatic Blue, that's the color I was talking about. I knew it started with an A. And that makes sense. Aethermatic sounds like something that you would talk about ghosts, like if you were a scientist. It's not bad. It's very transparent, so it might be good for night haunts. I would honestly think about almost firing it through an airbrush. The one thing I didn't really talk too much about that I remember in the contrast video, the contrast paint video, is that when you shoot contrast paints through an airbrush, they don't act anything like contrast paints, but they become a whole different thing. They're a very transparent, almost like a filter. And they actually work really nicely when you fire them through an airbrush. But they do not act like contrast paints at all. So they don't do the thing where they seep into the into the crevices. They don't, all that kind of jazz. So I used snakebite leather for eagle feathers. Looks great. Oh, nice, nice. Trey Baker says, I mixed up my Nighthaunt a bit. A lot of them have a pale teal color, but my spirit hosts are purple. Thinning down contrast paints with medium and putting it over white works really well. Yeah, I could see that, definitely. What about the green tone of the ghost/undead army from Lord of the Rings with your Nighthaunt? Well, yeah, I thought about that too. That would be a very fast thing to just basically prime everybody white and just do a very simple kind of green thing over the top of it. But yeah. Let's see here. I think Ironwind Metals produces those old Ralpartha Shadowrun figures. Yeah, if you could find them, that's true. That would be probably not too bad. Let's see here. Joseph says, good evening from the Philippines. My girlfriend and I are starting Kill Team. My girlfriend is starting with Necrons while I start with the Sororitas, which I may have gotten close to pronouncing properly. Nice. That's very cool. Let's see here. Check out Juan Hidalgo Miniatures YouTube channel for some really good videos on using contrast paints. Okay, all right. Whenever I hear Joe in a Wargaming Rules context, I automatically fill in with McCullough from Frostgrave, Rangers of Shadow Deep, and Oathmark. Yeah, no, he's very, very prolific and also makes great games. So that's definitely the case. Resolution by Aberrant and Hassle-Free Miniatures, Cobblestone Minis are all good for Cyberpunk. That's good to know. Yeah, I know. I remember Resolution from Aberrant that's an older game, and there'll be metal models and stuff like that. And I think that generally Hassle-Free works mostly in metals as well, obviously. And I don't know much about Cobblestone. I think I recognize the name, but yeah. But yeah, I can see that. Those are Resolution. I do have not a bunch. I've got some Resolution models in the basement someplace. I know, old eBay finds. Jay says, I'm excited for Combat Patrol. I came back to the hobby with Kill Team after a decade away. Previously played an 8-year-long Gorka Morka campaign that petered out. Wow, that's a long Gorka Morka campaign. Excited to expand some of my teams. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the interesting thing. I know that, I did a video about, is this going to have a big effect on Kill Team? And I still don't know, frankly. It's a good question. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Combat Patrol in a little bit, probably. Let's see here. Picked up some of the new Orc buggies, used contrast red over metal base coat, and it came out nice. Yeah. Contrast over metallics does look really, really nice. That's a very good use for it, too. In the first place, thank you. Question. I'm on... thank you. I'm on Warhammer 40k, and I like the more Blanchitsu style. I looked to several cross-references. What tips about chipping and weathering effects can I apply? For chipping and weathering effects, I prefer sponge. That's just me. Although I did order... I saw a video on YouTube, and now I can't remember who it was. Darn. Anyway, it's these things you can get, and I got them on, I think, Amazon, and it's like a little wire... It's a piece of wire about yay big that just has like a puff ball, like a little wool puff ball at the end. And I don't know what they're for, frankly. Maybe cleaning the insides of guns or something? I don't know. But it's just like a little wire, and it's not very long, and there's a puff ball. And what this person was doing was just kind of dipping it in like paint and then just sort of like dabbing it onto the model, and it was just making chips and like that kind of stuff. And so I want to try that out as well. But generally I use sponge, whether it's like a kitchen sponge that you tear up, or more frequently it is like the foam, like if you buy like a battle foam case, or if you buy a model that's on it's in a blister pack. It usually has that little weird square piece of foam in there to protect it, I guess, somewhat. I always keep all of those, and then you just tear it kind of irregularly, dip it in a little bit of paint on a palette, not on a wet palette usually. I usually do it on a regular piece of plastic. Just dip it, and maybe kind of, wipe it off, or kind of try to get a lot of it off, kind of like you do with dry brushing on a piece of paper towel. And then I just start catching along edges. I like to definitely catch edges because, let's say it's a tank or some sort of robot walking tank or whatever, and it's going through like branches and trees and stuff like that. Where the edges are is generally where the paint's going to get chipped off. If you go look at construction equipment, like they're going to start tearing up my street, in theory, sometime this upcoming week. But you go look at like the big backhoe that has the big arm that does this and scoops things, and you go just look and see where all the rest is, where the rust is and where the paint's been chipped off, the kind of yellowy, orangey safety paint, and just start taking a look at that and going, okay, cool, and that can help you with your weathering. I use that kind of technique quite a bit. I'm not a big fan of using a brush. Sometimes I do in very specific spots if I have a very specific need, but generally I kind of like the more randomness of using a sponge. Let's see here. Back into Necromunda, painting up the Van Saar gang. That's one of my favorites. The Van Saars are really great models. I really dig them. Shadow Threader says, just finished applying contrast paint to around 10 Marines shoulder pads. It's a nice tool to speedily get some colors on dudes. That's true. Yeah, I mean, it depends. Shoulder pads, it's a little bit harder, I think, because of the big flat area. But, you know, it's... I have not had good luck using contrast paint with Space Marines. That was one of the first things I tried. But with a lot of things that aren't Space Marines, things with fur, things with bumps and scales and stuff like that, it works really perfect. Trey says, I struggled to get Dark Angel's green to go over metallic smoothly. It came out very splotchy and uneven. Honestly, I have found that the Dark Angel's green is kind of splotchy and uneven in general. I have not had good luck with that one, which is one of the reasons why I didn't. I did not find it as bad for... as bad as the Ultramarine blue, but yeah, I did. J Solo Art says that those little puffballs on the wire are for applying stains to leather. Interesting. Yeah. What else? The funnest 40k tourney I played in was a 4th Ed Combat Patrol. Small 40k games can work if there are effective constraints on power. Like back in the day, I used to play, like when I first started playing 40k, it was in 5th edition. I'd been doing miniatures and stuff like that previously, but I'd always stayed away from 40k to some degree because I did not want to build a big, huge army. So when in 5th edition, in my local area, for whatever reason, Combat Patrol started getting popular. Now back then, Combat Patrol was 400 points and had a bunch of qualifiers on it. You know, you couldn't have any models that had like over, I think, 2 wounds, or maybe it was over 1. I think it was over 2 wounds. And you couldn't do, there was just like, and like you could have a vehicle, but back then, armor on the vehicles was like there was front armor, back armor, and then side armor. And so if you took the front, one of the sides, and the back and added it all together, if it was over 33 points of armor, then you couldn't use that vehicle. So you couldn't take a Land Raider, but you could take a Rhino, you know, that kind of stuff. So there was all these different rules and things and whatnot and everything. Like you couldn't have, I think, a 2-up save, whatever. So, and it was kind of cool, and I liked it, but there was not really much of a kill team at the time. If there had been Kill Team, I probably would have gone into that instead. That all being said, I'm interested in Combat Patrol, and they just put an article up, I don't know, it's a couple days back on the Warhammer community site, which we'll take a look at in a bit. And that's what I kind of want to talk about as far as that's concerned. Let's see here. So I ordered the Redgrass Games palette just to have to wait 6 weeks for it to come from France via Germany to Sweden to Wisconsin. Geez, that's a bummer. I'm sorry to hear that. Like I said, I've got the big one, but it was given to me as a thank you present for teaching classes at Nova Open, I think 2 years ago. And I have still not used it. I probably might use it at some point. It's so big that it takes up a ton of space on my desktop, and I still currently use this doesn't help you. You know, if you're watching this on a phone, you have no idea how big. But I use one that's about the size of a normal sandwich because it's a sandwich container. I still use the one that I built in the video from 7 years ago. If you were watching the stream on Twitch the past couple of days, you saw that same wet palette. So I still use it. But I've heard good things about the Redgrass. I've heard good things about the... I've not used the Redgrass. I have used the Army Painter, and I like that one too. I just seem to have misplaced the extra materials that it came with, like the sponges and the paper. I don't know where they went. I have the thing, and I used it a little bit, and then I don't... Anyway, I know AK Interactive makes one now too. I believe Privateer Press does. But yeah. Yeah, definitely. Dave says, so Combat Patrol is back for free. I don't know about free. I mean, you got to, but it'll be a game size in the new 9th edition, the new 40K. So when that book comes out, they've got this new game type that they're calling Crusade, which is more of a narrative sort of a, campaigny thing. But Combat Patrol is basically 500 points. They've got Combat Patrol missions that you can use. But I don't know that they're going through and saying, okay, well, you can't use this and you can't use that and whatever. That they haven't been super clear on yet. Yeah. Joshua Daniel Flores, good evening from the Philippines, Uncle Adam, painting up a couple of Star Wars Legion Bark speeders while listening. Well, good to hear. Good to hear. I'm excited to see what Combat Patrol offers. Kill Team is too fiddly for me personally. The thing is that I feel from the rules that I've been seeing coming out from that they're talking about, they're kind of previewing from 9th. I feel like as if 9th is going to be a bit more fiddly to some degree than 8th. Now, I could be wrong. I played very little in the way of 8th. I played less than half a dozen games of 8th before I started just basically going straight into Kill Team and Warcry. But like they're like, okay, well, here's this new rule in 9th we're going to show you. And then it's just like really in depth and deep. And I understand from what I've been told that they've done a lot more play testing with outside groups for this new edition. And a lot of these outside groups are very tournament or oriented. There are a lot of tournament players, which I get. So one thing tournament players like, and I understand this, and everybody should like this to some degree, is very clear rules. So sometimes I think that the rules that I've been seeing, like the one recently about Overwatch and all that kind of stuff, it seems like there's a lot more text there than there needs to be, but I think that's to basically nip those conversations that you sometimes have at tournaments in the bud. The ones like, well, I think it means this. Well, I think it means this. So they have to make it incredibly clear so there's no discussion, there's no argument. But then just reading it, like I wish they almost had like, here's the rule and here's the summary, like on a lot of those. And maybe they will. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know when or if it's coming out. I mean, I know if it's coming out, certainly. They've been talking about it a whole bunch. I just don't know when it's coming out. So, yeah, it's one of those things. Like the rules for back in the day when I played a little bit of War Machine back in like 1.5 and 2, those rules I thought were always very clear, but they did end up, because they were so clear, they ended up being a bit longer, which I get and I understand, but it is, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Cordial says the fact that there's specific missions for the Combat Patrol size of games is a good thing, in my opinion. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, if you had to play if you're just playing 500 points with a normal regular mission that was designed for a 1,500 to 2,000 point army, I think that would be problematic, certainly. So the fact that they're taking the time to make special Combat Patrol rules, I mean, it makes sense because they are they want to get people into the hobby. So, Kill Team was designed to be a very simple thing where you could paint up 5 Death Watch, and you've got yourself a force that you can do. You could paint up 6 Death Guard. You could paint up, maybe 15 Guardsmen, something like that. And you've got yourself a force, and that's great. And that helps to get people into the hobby, and maybe they'll take those Guardsmen and eventually turn them into a full-blown Guardsman army for regular 40K. We'll see. Now you have a step in between. So you could start out by building Guardsmen for Kill Team, and then be like, but if I add like this in this box, I can now have a 500-point Combat Patrol. So now you're it's almost like it's in between Kill Team and full-blown 40K. I mean, you're using the full-blown 40K rules, but you're playing at a much smaller size, which is a benefit to people who are, two things. Number one, people who are interested in getting into the game, but they want to dip their toe. They don't want to completely go all in. Or the people who frequently, like myself, want to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this. Because, again, I'm not interested in playing the big army games. I'm just not. But I wouldn't be opposed to playing smaller games and being able to have maybe, especially if I can take some of my Kill Team stuff and transition it. I was looking at, like, there's a Necron list when we go into that part, but there's a Necron kind of list that they show in the Warhammer community article they did about Combat Patrol. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, well, I could add this and this, and then that would be basic, to my current kill team, and then I would have probably this. So, back and forth that way, looking at it from that aspect, it's interesting. Caesar says, yeah, I'm a little scared about the new edition. I don't know that you should be scared. I don't think it's, it'll be, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how it's going to work, but I do feel it's swinging. Some people thought that 8th edition was too streamlined. I didn't, but I'm not a competitive player. If anything, it almost feels as if maybe it's going maybe a little bit away from streamlined, at least what I've seen from the stuff coming through Warhammer community. Again, I have not laid eyes on the actual book or anything like that. They've said on Warhammer TV that every rule in the 9th has the full text and a bullet point summary, but not all the previewed rules have had both sections. Well, that would be very helpful. If they give you, like, here's the bullet points and then here's the full text, then that would actually really help to cover both types of players. Me, like, as a player who's just like, just give it to me so I can do it, and then if we're like, if I get into a game with somebody who are like, we're both completely like, nope, you're wrong, and they're like, no, you're wrong, then we can go dig into the thicker portion of the rule and go through and go, oh, as it turns out, this is the way it's supposed to be. That's what I would prefer. I don't want to have to read, frankly, the big long rule unless I have to. That's, again, I got things to do. That's just the way it works. And I'm not also trying to win competitions. I want to just have fun and play games. So if they are going, with these bullet pointy versions and then the longer kind of dense versions, that seems like a real smart move in my opinion. So I hope that you're right. I hope that's the case. I have not watched a ton of Warhammer TV. I know they've been streaming like nearly every day. I have poked my head in there once in a while just to see how things are going. I think their tech issues are getting better, so that's really good. But yeah, I know they've done some hobby stuff where they're just kind of hanging around talking while they're building things, and that's cool. I like that. Symbio Joe says, I'm looking forward to Combat Patrol to relearn 40k/learn 9th edition. In our local gaming group, there's little interest on the side of the 40k players' side learning Kill Team. Yeah, I mean, I've found that to be the case, is that there's not a lot of... If you're playing 40k pretty regularly, you're maybe less interested in Kill Team. And then I've found also the exact same. You flip that around. If you're playing Kill Team a bunch, you're less likely to be interested in 40k. So maybe this is being looked at, this Combat Patrol thing is almost a thing to bridge the gap, so that the people who like Kill Team but don't like 40k can head that way, or people who don't like 40k can still play smaller games with their friends who don't want to play full-blown games and that kind of stuff. It's a smart move, I think, personally. Let's see here. Combat Patrol is interesting, but... Wait, did I read that one? No, I did not. Okay. Combat Patrol is interesting, but compared to Kill Team, instead of needing 1 to 2 softcover books to play Kill Team, I'll need a big 40k hardback and a codex for each faction to play Combat Patrol. That is true. That is an issue, to some degree, for the people who like... That's the thing that's going to be interesting. That's why I don't see Combat Patrol pulling a lot of people away from Kill Team. If the people who are playing the Kill Team are interested in Kill Team because they like the buffet style where I can play a bunch of different things, and also generally one book is all you need. For the most part, like around where I play, it's generally we just stick to the core book, and then sometimes we use elites, but like I've still yet really to get any decent games at Commander, and there's been some tests where we're like, well, what if we take a level 4 Broodlord against, a whole bunch of like guardsmen and see what happens? And it's not great. Like it's not been standard. Generally, we're playing the normal core book, and then we'll add sometimes we'll play 125 points with an elite in there, or sometimes we'll play a normal 100-point core book game, but we'll use the faction rules that come from elites, and drop that stuff in there, and then some of the other stuff like the reserves rule and things like that and whatever. But then we get rid of the scouting phase. It's fun to, at least amongst the people that you play with kind of regularly, to just sort of modify things. But you're right, that is always going to be an issue right now, specifically with 40k, is that you need at least 2 books, if not 3. Like, depending on the age of your codex, and depending if whether there was a Psychic Awakening book, you might need the main book, your codex, and a Psychic Awakening book with the updates, and probably even a 4th book. You're probably going to need chapter approved. So, sorry, I got something in my eye here. But yeah, that's kind of an issue with 40K right now, in my opinion, and I think that alone will turn maybe some folks off who are like, oh, I maybe want to dip my toe, and then find out they got to spend $200 on books or more. That's not going to necessarily fly with some folks. The folks who are interested in dipping their toe and heading into regular 40K, this is a great way for them to do that and make the transition. But they're going to have to swallow that pill first, where they've got a bunch of books that they got to buy. So. Adam Strange says, having 4 kids, 5 cats, a dog, and 16 chickens, I just don't have time for a full-size 40K game, so happy for Combat Patrol. I'm surprised you got time for anything. That's a lot of dogs and cats, and, well, there's the one, one dog. And kids, chickens, that's a lot of stuff. That's good on you. Tyler Barry says, I play with a guy who said about Kill Team, I didn't paint hundreds of little soldiers to only use 10 of them. Valid. That's why you played the big game. I don't want to paint hundreds of little soldiers. I would prefer to just paint 10 of them, and then maybe paint 10 more, and then paint 10 more, and then paint 10 more, and be able to switch around between different groups. Paint 5 of these guys, and 10 of these guys, and 6 of these guys. For me, it's not like it's not like an ADD thing or anything like that. Exactly. I mean, a little bit, maybe a touch it is. A little gaming ADD, which I've talked about in the past in video. But it is definitely, like I said, it's that buffet. I would rather try a bunch of different foods than just eat this one thing, As far as the gaming is concerned, I would love to be able to hop around it. Like, I like having my currently 6 or 7 kill teams painted, and several more in the wings that are built and ready to go. So yeah, that's just kind of the way it works. But there are other people who are like, nope, I just want to play one army. I want to have a huge thing, and that's why they give you the options. That's why Games Workshop keeps adding more and more things to their repertoires, because they want people to play their stuff. So might as well give them as many options as possible. Let me see. My buddy and I are just starting wargaming/Flames of War. Do you do much of that anymore? I have not. I've not played any Flames of War in quite some time. I am interested in Tanks: The Modern Age, which is by the same company. It's by Battlefront. It's a little bit more along the lines of X-Wing, but with tanks. So you have like little cardboard, sort of like little bendy, rulers and stuff like that, and you play on a much smaller board. Unfortunately, they seem to have discontinued Tanks: The Modern Age, so that's fine. But luckily, I think I have everything I already need. So, I mean, I don't want to go crazy with it. I just wanted 2 smallish, kind of normal forces. I had like I think it's a Soviet force and an American force. So I've got like an Apache helicopter and a Hind and an M1A1 and a bunch. I've got the parts, so that's fine. I guess if they're going to discontinue it, then I'll just play with the stuff I got. It makes sense to some degree, because I thought, oh, this is really cool. I like this. This is really neat. That's why they would discontinue it. I have a tendency to not. I have a tendency to like games sometimes that don't pan out. I don't know why that is, but it's my own issue. But yeah, so as far as actual Flames of War, though, the standard, I think they're in version 4 of the rules. I don't think I've played a single game of 4th edition or whatever they call it. So yeah, I don't really know much about it. I've painted, like I said, I've painted some of the modern age tanks a little bit here and there, but that's about it. Maybe the people around my area are weird, but we love to swap between Kill Team and regular 40K, especially on campaigns. I mean, every meta, for lack of a better term, is different. That's kind of the way it works. Definitely. Let's see here. Hey, Kevin Peters, how you doing? Good morning. Nox Star Fox says, I adore the 500-point patrol idea. So much easier to do multiple armies and talk new people into playing a quick game. Yes, like if you want to become a gaming advocate and you want to get new people involved in gaming, then it's, if you want to stick with 40K though, then that's actually a decent way to do it. So you've got the idea of, I'll build 2 500-point armies, and then I've got the book, which we can kind of share back and forth as I'm teaching you, and I've got a codex for both armies. That's not the end of the world. That's not huge. It's a decent size investment. It's much larger than, say, Kill Team. So there's that thought, to think about. But still, yeah, you could do it. You could do it way better. You can do it way easier at the Combat Patrol level than you can, obviously, at 1,500 or 2,000 points. So there's that. I started playing Kill Team, and now I started painting more, but I'm not close to painting 2,000 points in my army, but I'm around 750, so Combat Patrol is great for that. Yeah, I mean, again, like I said, for the people who've been playing Kill Team for a while, and then maybe building and adding more choices and things like that, you're getting even closer and closer to 500 points anyway, so, there's that. Combat Patrol doesn't appeal to me, says Brian Schmidt. A rules subset to a larger rulebook feels clumsy. I'm a simple man. Give me the packages experience. Yep, again, same type of thing. Let's see here. Steven says, I want to thank you for reigniting my love for Warhammer 40k. Your content is so wholesome and so inspiring. I say this being a 31-year-old senior staff sergeant, SSG. Sorry, I don't think I got that one. I'm not sure what that means. In the Army, and say thank you. Well, thank you, Steven. I appreciate it. I just, I think that a lot of people, I think more people should be doing the hobby, and I specifically the painting and building, because I personally find it to be stress relieving, sometimes even meditative, as I've said before. I think it works out well. So, do you think that they'll make a Kill Team 2nd edition, or just try to push people into Combat Patrol? I could see them. I mean, the thing about making a 2nd edition of Kill Team is they would literally just pretty much have to produce a book. That would be it. It wouldn't be a big, huge deal. Now, they may make a starter box that has the book in it. It has some forces and some terrain. They may do a big splash like that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe in the fall, maybe next year. Hard to say. With all the pandemic stuff going on, that may have slowed things down a bit. But yeah. A little Ewok says, I 3D model for work. Just got into 3D printing my terrain for Warcry. It's great fun. Well, that sounds cool. Absolutely. Neil says, hey, Adam, first time I catch you live. Thank you for all you do. Quick question. I want to paint the spells from Forbidden Power, but have little time these days. Which contrast paints would you use? I don't think I know what Forbidden Power is. I know what... yeah, I'm not sure which one that is. I mean, if the spells are like clear plastic, like sometimes, if you're talking about something for Age of Sigmar, what's that one that came out? Mortal, or there's something, Malign Portents. Those were all not clear. Some of them were kind of fiery, so I would use obviously the oranges and yellows and that kind of stuff. That would work well. You'd want to probably prime white. But yeah, I'm not familiar with the ones you're mentioning there. Forbidden Power. I have the Malign Portents box with the Everlasting Spells, and I've not. I've never pulled them out in my actual army. So, Kill Team needs a campaign system overhaul. Yeah, you're not wrong. It is a little. It's surprisingly long and I don't want to say dull, but it's a little dull. I played one with a friend of mine, and it is. It's one of those deals where you're like, okay, well, because you have these like numbers, these stats. There's like, they start at like 8 or 9 points, and you have 3 of them. And then as you lose some of those points, but you basically have to get it to the point where one of them drops, I think, to 0, and then you're the loser and the other guy wins. But that can take more than a dozen games, easy. So yeah, I think that's problematic. I kind of wish that honestly, I wish they would kind of like try to retrofit the Warcry one onto Kill Team, and maybe that's what they'll do with 2nd edition. We will see. A buddy and I just got the No Fear kit to start getting into wargaming. Cannot wait. That's a pretty good kit too. Yeah, that one and First Strike are both nice little starter kits for getting into those miniatures. I like them quite a bit, actually. Actually, the First Strike one is great for, like, if you want to buy the First Strike one, I think it costs like $40 retail, and that will get you a full-blown, basically a full-blown Kill Team of Primaris. So you'll get 3 regular Primaris and 3 Reavers. The Death Guard part, if I remember correctly, gives you 3 Death Guard and 6 Poxwalkers, which is not enough for 100 points. So you kind of need to try to find maybe a couple more Death Guard to throw in there, like 1 or 2, and then I think you could be able to hit 100 points better. So that's a bummer. I kind of wish that they had the ability to fix that a little bit, but otherwise for $40, it's a great start. I mean, like, yeah. Can someone give me some insight on why anyone would bring a patrol detachment instead of a battalion? I would not be able to do that. I'd not be able to tell you that. I mean, generally, I've always believed you kind of start by starting with a battalion in most situations, and then patrol detachment would be an add-on depending on what kind of models you've got, you know. But I don't know that you would just bring a patrol detachment. I think you would generally, from what I understand, for kill team, you're just bringing a patrol detachment. I think we'll see that when we go to the thing. Zach says, I only got First Strike, but it's an excellent box for the price. Got my sister into the hobby. Yeah, I think it really is. Yeah. Morning from Cincinnati. Finished the Taraxi kit. Feeling meh on the kit. Wings make it hard to use. That's the kind of flying guys, right? From the new AdMech. Yeah, I saw somebody just recently modify, like take those wings off and put them on some other kit bash that they were doing, and they looked spectacular. But I was not super into these particular AdMech models. Like, I like a bunch of the AdMech models. I love the Rust Stalkers. I think they're cool. Just the regular troops, like the Vanguard Rangers, whatever. Those guys are cool. The big, 1950s kind of robot, the Castellan or whatever, is awesome. Great model. Love it. But the new flying vehicle, not necessarily my aesthetic choice. The new flying guys, same deal. I don't know why. I mean, I guess, again, like I said, those wings looked really cool in this other kit bash the guy did. It was almost like it was like a kind of a weird robot sort of thing that had like a jet engine for a face, like the front part of a jet engine, and it had those crazy wings sticking off of it. It was just sort of hunched over as it was flying. It was really cool looking. I think I saw it on Facebook somewhere, or Instagram. Anyway. Yeah, but the actual models that I saw, I've seen them at the store and online and stuff. I haven't seen them in person. And there's one of those deals that sometimes you see a model specifically from Games Workshop and you're just like, nah. And then you see it in person, like from a slightly different angle, and you're like, oh, that looks actually a lot better. There's just sometimes if they catch a model from the wrong angle, I just don't like it, which is why a lot of times they do those 360 spins on the website, which sometimes can help, but not always. First Strike, Death Guard with an extra box of Poxwalkers, cheap and efficient kill team. Yeah, I could see that if you wanted to run that many more Poxwalkers. Because that would put you at, what, like 9? Or, no, 12? I don't know. Yeah, I just don't like Poxwalkers. I don't like their faces. Like, I don't know if they're good or bad in the game or not or whatever, but those weird sort of grinning faces, I just don't like them. I guess I could remove their heads and put different heads on them. That seems like a lot of work. I don't know. New to the hobby and also late to the stream. Well, that's fine. Could you give a quick explanation of what Combat Patrol is compared to normal games of 40K? Mainly the difference is that it's a 500-point game instead of, say, 1,500 points or 2,000 points or something like that. Let me bring up this. I won't be able to see chat while I do it. And that. And then there we go. Cool. All right, so this is the article that they did recently about, this is back on Friday, maybe, I think? Or was it Saturday? I don't know, Friday or Saturday. What's today's date? It was Friday. So this is on the Warhammer community website, and it was about Combat Patrol. So what is Combat Patrol? It's the new way to play small games of Warhammer 40,000. It's for armies of a combined total power level of 50. Okay, number one, I wish that they would stop trying to make power level happen. It's not going to happen. Like, nobody that I know likes to use power level. Nobody ever bothers. It's just, but they always push power level. If you follow that asterisk down to the bottom of the page, they say, or, like 500 points, I guess. Right. Just, anyway. So, but they keep pushing the power level thing. I don't get it. So, let's just say 500 points. Why is Combat Patrol awesome? Well, because it takes around an hour to play. It also means you can get more games in. You could hold your own league or ladder in just one evening, blah, blah. Okay. And since you only need a small army, a Combat Patrol force is also a great milestone to aim for when beginning a new faction. That's, again, part of the deal. But one of the benefits that now that Combat Patrol is more of an official thing that will be in the book is you will see, like I mentioned earlier, you'll see actual rules. Or not rules. Well, you will see rules, but you'll also see missions for it. So you've got primary objectives, secondary objectives. They're relatively simple, but still, there's missions here. So that's kind of nice, because the issue with Combat Patrol in the past is it was always a scaling issue. Sitting down and saying, cool, we're going to run this in this Combat Patrol, but like if you play it on a 4x6, that's too big and all that kind of stuff. And so the scale, not just the size, but also just like certain armies could make a great 500-point list and other armies can't. And I think we might see a little bit of that as I kind of go further here too. So getting into building your army. An army for Combat Patrol is based on a single patrol attachment, which gives you a nice amount of flexibility and choice for the size of the battle. So it's 1 HQ, 1 to 2 HQs, and 1 to 3 troops. That's what you have to have. And then you get 0 to 2 elites, 0 to 2 fast attack, 0 to 2 heavy support, 0 to 2 flyers. And each dedicated transports each can include. So this is very different than back in the day. Back when you played Combat Patrol, you couldn't take like heavy support, I don't think. There was a bunch of things you couldn't take. There were no flyers back when I used to play Combat Patrol in 5th edition. There were no flyers. So anyway, so here they've got some sample armies that are around power level 25. Okay, well, if you know people who are like, yeah, that's fine. We'll play with like around, great. I mean, generally, anytime I play anybody, it's always like, we're going to play points, right? So then it's as equal as possible, right? Sort of. I mean, Anyway, so you've got, and this is from the new starter box that's coming out soon, the Indomitus box. And these are the Necrons that are coming in the Indomitus box. So there's going to be 20 Necron warriors, 2 groups of 10. So, and then you got 3 of these Skorpek destroyers and a Skorpek lord. So you're looking at 24 models right there for 500 points. At that point, I'm a little like, I don't know that I want to build and paint 24 of something. This is a personal preference. You do you, but I am a big, like one of the reasons why I like Kill Team is because I can build 5 to 10 and have an army. Here we're looking at 24. So, and it's a whole bunch of Necron warriors with the same dude, kind of, obviously slightly different poses, but it's the same dude over and over and over again. I'm hoping the new warriors are easier to build than the last set of warriors, because the regular Necron warriors, I find hard to get their arms to sit where I want them to sit. That's just a pain in the butt, but, again, your mileage may vary. At least they took out the new warriors don't have the little acrylic green plastic clear rod in there. That's sort of a pain. So I'm glad they kind of got rid of that to some degree. Now, again, from the Indomitus box, you've got a 25 total power level list of Space Marines, Primaris Space Marines. Now, this is a much smaller army because it is literally, we got 6, we got 11, we got 13 guys. So we've got a Primaris Lieutenant, of course. We've got 5 Assault Intercessors. We've got a Blade Guard Ancient. We have 3 Blade Guard Veterans and 3 Outriders, aka motorcycle dudes. So that's not a very, that's okay. It's not a big army. Now, my concern, though, and I don't know about this, is in a lot of games, frequently quantities can beat quality. Like just weight of fire, the ability to spread out your people to take more objectives, that kind of thing. Having again, like I said, what did I say here? So that's 6, that's 11, that's 13. So 13 models versus 24 up here. I don't know. Is that going to be a problem or not? I was able to beat a friend of mine who was playing Custodes after Elites came out. He had 3 Custodes versus my Imperial Guard list in Kill Team, which was only, I think, 13 Imperial Guard. And the only reason I was able to beat him is because I was literally able to clog the hallways of the setup that we had with my body or bodies so that he couldn't get to the objective faster. I had one guy standing on the objective wetting himself because he sees these giant golden, monstrosities coming towards him, but they couldn't come fast enough because he could only kill 1 model per turn because they're, you know what I mean? Just the way, he had to kill at least 1 model per turn, and he was doing it, but I had enough guys to throw in front of him that I was able to win the game. So sometimes, again, quantity beats quality. So that's going to be a good question. When I used to play Combat Patrol back in 5th edition, I liked to play Chaos, but I literally could take 1 Rhino and 10 guys. And that was it. And it wasn't great. You know what I mean? Like, I got outclassed by a lot of other armies that could get a lot of other cool toys within 400 points, because Kill Team or Combat Patrol used to be 400 points back then. All right, so then those are the guys that come in the new box, but then they also decided to make some lists with stuff that's already out there. So here's a 22 total power Gene Stealer cult. Now see, here's again, the granularity issue. So this is 22 total power versus 25 total power. You couldn't find another thing to throw in there for another 3 power? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's very interesting to me why they keep working on this power idea. I think they think it's easier, but I don't know. Anyway, so here you've got an Acolyte Icon Ward, who's basically just a big dude holding an icon. You got 5 hybrids with some weapons. You got 10 neophyte hybrids with a bunch of different weapons. You've got a vehicle, the Achilles Ridge Runner with the heavy mining laser. You got 10 Gene Stealers, and you have the Jackal Alphys, who's basically a person on a motorcycle. So that is 15, 25, 26, 27, 28. So technically 27 in a vehicle. So again, that's getting to and this is again only total power 25. I'd love to know what the actual points of this versus the points of this would be, but they kind of can't tell us at this point yet, because I don't think they want to release the points for the new Indomitus stuff, or just new stuff in general due to 9th edition coming out. So if you're interested in playing, games like, let's say, Bolt Action generally, you have 20, 25, 30 models plus a tank, and that's your entire force. If you think that that's like cool, and you're like, okay, great, that's a decent size, then that's fine. You'd be very, I think, interested in Combat Patrol. But I think that if you're into Kill Team, where you're usually running 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 models, this will be a good deal more models in most situations. Again, like I said, our Space Marine friends here, because they're chunky, there'll be less of them. But Gene Stealer cults, this is a bunch of models here. Here's, again, getting into the Chaos Space Marines. This is interesting because this is a very small number of models. It's 9 models. So you've got 5 Chaos Space Marines, 2 Obliterators, which are big dudes, 1 Master of Possession, who's your kind of big boss, and then you have a Venom Crawler, which is a pretty big, weird spider vehicle dude with a guy on it. So, that's also a potential. But again, we're looking at total power of 22, so it seems like it's not particularly optimized, let's say. And then we can get into our AdMech. So we've got a Tech Priest and Jasir. That makes sense. You got 10 Rangers, sure. You got a Dune Rider, just one of them, Scorpius Dune Rider. And then you have 3 of these Cataphron Destroyers, who are basically guys with tank treads for legs, if I remember correctly. So again, we're looking at 1, 11, a vehicle, and so we're like at 14 models plus a vehicle. Total power 24. I would love to see how this goes up against the Primaris Marines. You know what I mean? Because this seems to me, just from the very vagueness that I know, this seems a little bit underpowered, but I don't know. We'll see. So in this article, they talk a lot about like, oh, it's just like a start collecting box plus a little bit of thing, and you got yourself a whole 500-point army, which is fine. So, like this one here, it says, this list can be made from the Start Collecting Chaos Space Marines box. The Venom Crawler offers incredible mobility. Back it up with the firepower. So is the Venom Crawler in the new Chaos Space Marines Start Collecting box? Let's take a look, because I don't know that it is. Unless, I guess it's possible. Oh, yeah, I guess it is. It's the new one. Oh. So that makes sense. So for $95, you're getting a Start Collecting box that comes with the big boss guy, comes with 2 of the Obliterators, comes with the big giant walking spider guy, and that's not a bad deal, I guess. I just don't like the new Obliterators. I don't know. I didn't like the old Obliterators either, frankly. I mean, they've always been like a good unit. Not always. Sometimes been a good unit. I just have never liked the models. Some other company, I forget who, some third-party company made some Obliterator models. They didn't call them Obliterators, but you could tell they were Obliterators, and they were really nice models, and I liked them a lot. And but now they're way smaller than these new Obliterators. The new ones are kind of massive. So anyway. So these are some of the, if you go to the Combat Patrol, join the Combat Patrol article over at the Warhammer community website, you can find a bunch of information, and they're talking about some of these sample armies, which I think is interesting. They didn't get real deep into missions. They only showed like the first mission here, if this number 1 means anything, which is what I think it does. And I don't know how many missions that they're going to be putting in. New Warhammer 40k features bespoke combat patrol missions, both for match play and narrative crusade games, and we can't wait to try them all out. All right, so there's some, evidently, more than one. And then, again, talking about the patrol detachment and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting to see, and I'm interested in trying it out, definitely. But it's going to be a very different thing for people who are Kill Team players. This is not going to be the same as Kill Team, not even by a long shot. It's going to be plenty different. So that's going to be, I think, something important for folks to kind of understand there. Go back to this. All right. So, yeah, anyway, that's the whole kind of concept, I guess, in my opinion, partially at least so far with Combat Patrol. I don't know why, but I get those two mixed up. Those new Oblits are sick. Well, they're kind of, I guess if you painted them Nurgle, they would be sick. I could definitely do that. The new Obliterators are way better than the older ones. Yes, but I still think they're kind of I still don't like them. I don't like them much. I don't know why. Venom Crawler is cool, though. Yeah, it is. It's very good. Let's see here. I've never liked the Obliterators since they were introduced late in 2nd edition, or was it 3rd? I remember when they were in 5th. Yeah, I think it was in 5th, and you could just, every turn, you could just use a different weapon and just choose what you wanted to. I think you had to use a different weapon. You couldn't use, laser cannon twice, but you'd be like, okay, well, this turn he's going to shoot a laser cannon. The next turn he's going to shoot a plasma cannon. The next turn he's going to shoot a missile launcher. And then next turn after that, we're going back to laser cannon or whatever. And that was cool. I always liked them for that. They were expensive, points-wise, but they were cool models. I liked them. Let's see here. I'm interested because I get to add some cool extra stuff that I can't use in Kill Team. Also probably easier to kill things than in Kill Team. That may be the case to some degree. That's true. I think the games will be probably quick, hopefully, because you're right, they will be a little different. Like Kill Team's got that whole, flesh wound thing and all that kind of stuff, which I like, but, your mileage may vary. I know that I've had a lot of people who've been who've asked me over since Kill Team came out. They're like, oh, when do you think they're going to let us bring vehicles into Kill Team? And I'm like, I don't think that's the point of Kill Team. It's called Kill Team, and it's people, not vehicles, you know what I mean? So now, if you do want to bring in some vehicles and you want to play Combat Patrol, you got your option. So you can kind of have a smaller army, but it's still maybe got a vehicle in it, which is cool. And you could go with more vehicles, certainly, as long as you stick within the patrol detachment, and within 500 points, which is where the issue is going to come from. So, Christopher says, hi, Adam. No local shops or clubs, but have enough for several factions combat patrols. COVID aside, how do I go about garnering interest in the game from new players? It depends. If you're playing other types of tabletop games with folks, if you've got friends that like to play board games or RPGs, you could be like, hey, once everything, again, COVID aside, kind of calms down, you could be like, hey, come on over and I'll show you how to play 40K. Maybe you'd be interested. And maybe they just come over and play with your stuff from then on and they don't want to go forward into it. But you may also, and I think this is a fishing term, you may set the hook on one of them, and then they will be interested in finding out more about this, and maybe they'll get into Kill Team, or maybe they'll get into Combat Patrol, or maybe they'll get into a totally different game. Maybe they'll get into something they really love building weird, kind of crazy models, and they don't like to paint within the lines, you know what I mean, and follow the normal instructions when you're building whatever models. And so you might want to play a game that allows you a lot of kit bashing, like Planet 28 or Star Breach, or any of those different types of more skirmishy games that are not from Games Workshop. You can totally go that direction as well. So yeah, it's hard. Not everybody is obviously interested in this type of hobby. There's a lot of people out there that are like, or I could just play video games and not have to do any work, just sit and play the game, which is understandable. But for a lot of folks that are interested in tabletop gaming, the craft portion of it can be a big deal. For people, there are some people out there who love the competitive across the table nature. Maybe they like the more, I don't want to say plodding, but slower strategic gameplay versus the more frenetic, very quick gameplay of, let's say, a video game. Let's say you're playing real-time strategies, it's all about how quickly you can click and how many commands you can do per second or whatever. And obviously, that's not something that we have to worry about as much. We've still usually got time limits for tournaments and things like that, but we don't have to worry about, like how many things can I do so quickly and that kind of stuff for the most part. So that's an option. Those are things to think about as well. So yeah, you may not... It may be one of those things where you have to teach a bunch of your friends or whatever to go that direction, but it might not always work out. Something going down the block with a siren. Interesting. They went that way, dear. Let's see here. Oh, goodness. I'm just excited for a game designed at a size where my kill team only friends might play. I mean, that's important. I totally understand that. Christian says, I love the idea of obliterators, but they've never had good models. No, I agree. I like the idea as well, but I've never been real happy with the models. Is it going to be squad-based or free each model like kill team? It will be squad-based. It'll be 40K. It'll be basically 40K, so you like in any one of those lists that I showed you, if there was a squad of 5 Space Marines, or Chaos Space Marines, let's say, they would need to stay in cohesion and move as a squad. You would activate them as a squad. They're not moving separately. So again, a very different kind of game than Kill Team. In Kill Team, one of the things I love about Kill Team, one of the things that I have a tendency not to dig about big army games, is I like moving everybody separately. I don't like, okay, well, these guys will all move over here. It's not that I'm against it. I just don't like it as much. Let's just say that. Let's see. The term patrol has been tainted by Paw Patrol for me. Really? Okay. You keep saying combat patrol, but I can only envision cute cartoon dogs in Space Marine-ish armor. Well, that would be a fun game, I think. I don't know. I don't have any kids, so I understand. I have a vague notion of the Paw Patrol, but I don't know that they are. Yeah, I don't know that in the 41st millennium that they are only, doing war. I don't know. I don't really know what the Paw Patrol does. I'm assuming. I swear to God, one of them wears a fireman's hat. Are they? I think they're helping. So yeah. David Moffat says, I'd play Combat Paw Patrol. Yeah, I mean, that seems like one of those, what do you call it, like a marketing cross-promotion. Boom, there you go. Start them when they're young, I guess. Sounds like the cops are coming for Adam. No, it was a fire truck. I don't know, maybe it might have been one of those, like, if maybe somebody had a heart attack or one of those kind of things. When my mom fell and broke her leg, a truck like that came to get her up and take her to the emergency room and stuff like that. Clinton M says, that's why I now have skirmish-sized armies for all Star Wars, Legion, factions, and Middle-earth SPG. I also have the terrain and the setup. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, is if you're serious about trying to get other people into the hobby, it kind of gets put on you to have two forces, which is why it's really hard to get somebody into the full-blown hobby of, let's say, 40K or Age of Sigmar, because then you have to have 2 entire armies. But if it's kill team, those armies are a lot smaller. You could have 2 kill teams you could easily have 2 kill teams that were technically only 10 guys. Between the 2, you could have like a 5-man, let's say, Death Watch, and a 5-man Grey Knights. Boom, there you go. 10 models, that's 2 armies. So, it's not that hard to do that. And again, you're just having basically the one book. You don't have to have codexes and all that kind of stuff. Something like Combat Patrol will still allow you to be able to go that direction, but it will take a little bit. It'll take some more models, and it'll take probably some more books. So there's that as well. Sign me up for Combat Paw Patrol. All right, well, maybe that's a Kickstarter. I can hear it right here. Has anyone had the chance to play with the new Necromunda box? Is it possible to play all of the gangs with just the rules in that box? And by new Necromunda box, you mean Necromunda box from like 3-4 years ago? I mean, or is there, as I haven't seen anything new, or are you talking in comparison to the original Necromunda, which came out like in 95? If you're talking about the new stuff, I don't think everything you need to play all the different factions is in that box. You can just buy the book and some factions, and there's a couple different books. There's the original kind of like main rule book, and then they have a bunch of these Gang War add-on books, Gang War 1, Gang War 2, whatnot. And then a while ago, maybe a year or so ago, maybe more, they came out with a big new thick book, which was basically the original rule book plus all the Gang War supplements. So I guess you could try to find just that book and then get some models and go to town. But I think you would still need certain... I don't know that you don't... If you're just going to plan on playing on your own terrain, you don't technically need the starter box at all. But you still need the book, obviously, and then some models and whatnot. Space Wolves equals Paw Patrol. See, there you go. That makes sense. Uncle Adam, could you remind me of what your airbrush pieces you leave in your ultrasonic cleaner? Sure. So what I do is, let's see. So, and I don't have an airbrush anywhere near me here, so I can't really. So the parts, you know how you take the back part off? There's the handle part. I don't put that in the cleaner. Then there's like a little nut that you unscrew that holds the needle in. I don't keep that in the cleaner. Then you slide the needle out, which I sort of dip into the cleaner a little bit, and then get it kind of, get the paint off of it, wipe it with a paper towel, and then I set that aside. I don't keep that into the fluid either. Then there's this whole kind of extra part that the needle went into and the nut was attached to, and you unscrew that whole part out of the main body of it, set that aside, it doesn't go in there. Usually then the trigger part comes off the top, and then that part doesn't go in there. And then pretty much everything else does. So the main body, there's usually there's like a tip protector kind of nozzle at the front that you unscrew. There's the overall nozzle that you unscrew. Sometimes there's a separate piece that's inside there. All those parts and the main body I keep in my ultrasonic cleaner, but you could keep them in a big glass cup. You could keep them in a bowl, whatever. As long as they stay wet, you should never ever have a problem of paint drying on the inside of your airbrush and clogging it. So the fluid that I generally keep them in is distilled water, which you can get at the grocery store. The reason you use distilled water is because it doesn't really have any minerals in it, so it doesn't leave like a mineral kind of deposit on like the side of the ultrasonic cleaner or on your actual airbrush. And then I usually, the airbrush cleaner that I use is just made by Iowata. I get it I can't find it any place locally, so I end up getting it from Amazon. And I get it in 16 or 32 ounce bottles. They're like a big squirt bottle. And it's made by Iowata, and it's just airbrush cleaner. So I run probably, I would say 3/4 water inside there, and then the rest of it is the airbrush cleaner. But you don't really probably even have to. But it works pretty well. And like I said, I have never had a clog in my airbrush. And I have never had my airbrush rust. It's made out of brass. It won't. It's like chromed brass. Like right where the gravity feed cup is like welded to the body, I can see where some of the chrome is gone now, but it's incredibly small and it doesn't seem to have any problem. So yeah, it's literally, my airbrush has been in water or in fluid for years and years and years. It's only out when I'm using it, and then I put it back in. So I've never had an issue with that. Isn't Combat Paw Patrol the name of the new Marvel game? Could be. I always thought it was Lunchtime Rainbow, but whatever. We came up with a whole bunch of different ones. Marvel Lunchtime Rainbow, Marvel Combat Paw Patrol. That works too, I guess. Again, sounds like a kind of a cross-promotion sort of situation. Between Intercessors and Reavers, the addition of Elites, I got enough stuff to play Combat Patrol, or a game with about 3,000 Primaris, but painted enough stuff for Combat Patrol. Well, that's good. That's good to hear. John says, I'm really looking forward to Combat Patrol. Short, quick games to scratch an itch without having to pull out 2,000-point armies. They'll give me an opportunity to play a new army without getting too invested. That's the whole idea in my mind. That's really what they're looking at there. And the one reason that could get me to start to play Combat Patrol would be the fact that it would be quicker games. I would be able to build smaller forces. But again, like I said, I would be very interested to see the more elite forces and how well they actually work against the less elite forces. And by more elite, I mean, let's say, the Primaris in that list where there was only 13 guys versus the Necron list where there was 25 or 24 or whatever. Because a lot of times when you go really elite, then you can't take as many objectives if that's the mission. And because you've worked yourself, that's one of the reasons to make a generally balanced list, because you don't know what the missions are going to be. If you're going to a tournament and they've already told you what the missions are going to be up front, then sometimes you can tailor a little bit, but it depends. Oops, I keep clunking my microphone, sorry. All right. I want to build at least a couple of Combat Patrol armies. I like a couple of kill teams plus a vehicle. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different options, I guess. That's the thing too, is that I believe that anything pretty much any army that's going to be available to play in ninth should be available to play as a combat patrol. Like, from what I understand, combat patrol is not, it's certainly not a separate game. It is just a different game size. So it's just 500 points, and then they say, well, you should use these missions when you do it. But otherwise, it's normal 40k. The normal new 9th edition, the new 40k, hashtag new 40k, is what's going on to that. So, Sundered Psyche asks, how does one remove the excess green stuff from under their fingernails? Asking for a friend. Well, that's a tough one. Like, if I was to do it, and I've not done this before, wink, wink, what I've done is to actually use an X-Acto blade and to get under there, which is potentially fraught with danger if you screw up and then poke a X-Acto blade underneath your fingernails. That's how you torture people in some places, and so don't do that. I'm shaking my head, don't do that. But if you have to, that may be a way to do it. I'm just saying. Primaris look like a faction that can take every chapter without losing CP. Yeah, that's potentially, yeah. Adam Strange says, it's been said so many times, I'm going to be hard-pressed not to call it Combat Paw Patrol from here out. Well, you know, I mean, that's fun. There's nothing wrong with that. Combat Patrol just doesn't work for Custodes now that I think about it. See, and that's very possible. I could see that to some degree. That was the issue with Combat Patrol back in the day, was there's just certain armies that just couldn't bring together anything decent for 400 points. And then there were other armies that worked, like Tyranids worked great for Combat Patrol because you could just bring so many little tiny buggy dudes, you know, and have them running around and doing stuff at 400 points. Whereas Combat Patrol, I had like 9 guys and a vehicle, like a Rhino, I think. Because back then, 5th edition, if you didn't have a vehicle to put your people in, generally, I don't know why, but they just, you didn't do it. Everybody put all their people in little metal boxes and drove them across the table, and that's the way it works. And now if you look at 8th edition, like almost nobody uses vehicles, it seems. You know, other than Guard, I guess. But, yeah. When stripping minis, does one have to strip all the way to the plastic, or is leaving some primer on okay? As long as the primer is thin enough, and it's not like, you know, like, whatever, you know, obscuring detail. If it's not filling in detail, then yeah, there's no reason that you have to get rid of the primer. You may want to dust it again with your own primer, depending upon color, depending upon a lot of different things. It might be color. It might just because like you got some of the primer off and some you didn't. So now you still want to spray some stuff down there so that you at least have primer everywhere. It kind of depends. Some sort of beeping going on outside the house. Fire truck is backing up down the street. I don't know what's going on. It's a through street. You could just go forward. 500 points in patrol detachment with a set of missions tailored for that size, otherwise just 40k. Yeah, exactly. That's what a combat patrol is. Let's see here. Potentially fraught with danger. Yeah, well, that's yeah, you don't want to do that. Let's see here. If you want to clean under your fingernails, there are definitely pre-existing products for that. Yeah, but with green stuff, like especially if it's hardened down, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. I mean, like a normal little plastic thing or a toothpick ain't going to do the job, I don't think. At least that was a problem that I've had in the past. John says, I haven't played power level in 40k because it seems very unbalanced. I agree with you. However, with Combat Patrol, I think it won't matter that much, and I'm more keen to try power to quickly set up armies. I mean, that's the idea behind power level, is that it's just, well, you can just quickly do it and it's fine. But, you know, like one of the benefits, one of the things I like about 40k in general, and also Kill Team, is I like, well, this guy's got a plasma gun, and this guy's got this, and this, and you know, if it's just like, well, if they all just walked out with bolters, it's power level 4. But if they all walked out with bolters, except this guy had, you know, a plasma gun and this guy had a missile launcher because it's within the rule set that they can do that, it's still power level 4. Well, one is going to kind of outclass the other to some degree, and I think that's sort of the problem that I generally have with it, but it depends. So are Primaris units and models just more powerful than regular units, as in Primaris Ultramarines versus Ultramarines? So Primaris Marines versus what they call Tactical Marines, which are generally the older kind of Marines. Well, for one thing, Primaris Marines are 2 wounds, whereas the Tactical Marines are 1. So right there, they can take basically 2 wounds versus 1. So they're kind of, I don't want to say they're double the power, but they're at least slightly double the survivability. So there's that. The guns that the Primaris carry are called bolt rifles, which I think have a longer range. If I remember correctly, they're 30-inch instead of 24. And they also have a, like the strength and the strength and the damage are the same, but I think they have a -1 AP if I remember correctly, but don't hold me to that. So they're slightly better weapons, and they have 2 wounds. Otherwise, most of the rest of the stuff I think is roughly the same. Strength and toughness and all that jazz. But they cost more points, so there's that too. So it's not like if they cost exactly the same points as TAC Marines, but yet they had all these other benefits, that would seem totally unfair. But they don't. They are worth more points, so there's that. Do you think we'll see more of your bat reps with the advent of the Paw Patrol? Sorry, new Combat Patrol. Potentially. I was really hoping to get more battle reports, but now pandemic, so that's not working out. I was about to do a solo one, and I'm still planning on doing that. I might even be able to do it. I would love to be able to do it for even potentially next week, like put it up and have it on Sunday, but there's a bunch of work that needs to be done to it. And I need to reshoot some stuff, unfortunately. When you're there by yourself trying to make a battle report, it's difficult, as it turns out. I don't know why. You'd think it would be less difficult because you don't have to tell anybody what to do because it's just you. But I don't know. Yeah, but I am working on a solo game battle report, and I'll probably be doing those probably for a while. Again, my hope was to do one per month, but this most recent one is sort of not worked out. So I'm trying to get back into the swing of that. But between that, every other Sunday show, every Friday video, also now starting to do Twitch on Fridays mornings, and still having a day job. The time thing is the issue. Let's see here. Sundered Psyche says the blade works, huzzah, and no fingers are missing. Well, that's honestly best case scenario. I'm glad that it worked and that you didn't torture yourself. So that's good to hear. Let's see here. Mark Middleton says, I was planning to get into 40k via Kill Team and get random big models I like for painting, but Combat Patrol sounds better and you could play Kill Team also. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too. If you want to, you can kind of look at it from the other aspect where you're like, I'm going to build a Combat Patrol, but I'm going to make sure that there's some stuff in my Combat Patrol that I can use in Kill Team. So there's that. And, and maybe my Combat Patrol gives me like a bigger model, like maybe like that weird spidery guy from the Chaos, or whatever, like a vehicle or something like that. So you got that kind of fun, but you can also then say, well, this squad I can just take and put into combat or Kill Team and play as a Kill Team. So you've got those options too. That is kind of nice. Have they said how the Combat Patrol missions are going to be distributed? I hope they aren't limited release like the Warcry faction cards or some of their boxed games expansions. I suspect that they will be in the main book, like most of the rest of the missions that will be. And then probably going forward, they will end up being in Chapter Approved 2020 and that kind of stuff. So the Chapter Approved 2020 is not just points adjustments, it's also generally a bunch of extra missions and all kinds of stuff. So the benefit of those books, Chapter Approved, General's Handbook for Age of Sigmar, Kill Team Annual for Kill Team and all that kind of stuff, is even though maybe you've got the original you've got, let's say, I don't know, 2018 General's Handbook for Age of Sigmar. Well, then the 2019 comes out. So do you throw away the 2018 book? Well, no, because it's got a whole bunch of missions in it. The points are now moot that are in there and that kind of stuff. The point adjustments, which are usually in the back, but all the rest of the stuff in those books is still useful. It's just more mission types and things like that. So that's kind of one of the benefits, I think. But we'll see. I'm assuming this upcoming fall is when the next Chapter Approved will come out. So it'll probably have some new Combat Patrol missions in there. But there will probably be, if I had to guess, being psychic and all, I would say that there might be 4 to 6 Combat Patrol missions that will be put in the book. Just because in a lot of the other books, they'll be like, oh, there's 6, open missions, there's 6 narrative missions, there's 6 match play missions. So we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll do fewer. Maybe they'll do more. That'd be cool. Maybe they'll put a dozen different types of missions in there for all the different type of plays things. That'd be spectacular. That would really make the book worthwhile. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. 500-point army. I think that translates to $200 in Harlequins. That's a lot of Harlequins. That's a lot of painting weird little check-marked tights. I don't want to do that. Let me see. Hopefully the 40K gaming communities embrace Combat Patrol to make that entry to the hobby less daunting to new players. I remember back in the day when Combat Patrol was popular in 6th, 7th, something like that. There used to be entire Combat Patrol tournaments at Adepticon. Like, I had friends who would play in them because they would play in the Combat Patrol tournaments rather than playing in the big tournaments because they preferred the smaller games. So, yeah, I had a couple of friends. I mean, Sam, I think, used to play in Combat Patrol tournaments at Adepticon, but I know my friend Kevin, who was here in the chat earlier, had played in a bunch of them as well. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty well accepted back then, and I suspect they'll probably do the same thing now. Again, there will still be people playing 2,000-point, big battle armies, and that's their jam. But I think that you'll see at some of the conventions, the big ones, LVO, Nova, Adepticon, all that kind of stuff. I think you're going to start to see in the next, well, if we get to have them again into 2021. You'll see Combat Patrol tournaments in there probably as well. Boop. Let's see here. Uncle Adam, can any type of paint, base layer, etc. be used for decent dry brushing results? Generally, yes. So here's the thing about dry brushing paint. I generally find that if a paint is very fluid, like in a dropper bottle, a lot of paints can be very fluid. Like the Pro Acryl stuff from Monument / Creature Caster is very fluid. What I like to do if I'm going to be dry brushing with it is very frequently I will actually like squirt it out. Instead of onto my wet palette, I'll put it on like a scrap piece of plastic or something like that. And I will let it sit for 4 or 5 minutes before I start dabbing my brush into it because I want it to get a little bit less wet. If a paint is very wet, it becomes difficult to dry brush with it, which seems obvious, but it's not necessarily. Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like the dry brush paints, the Games Workshop, I don't know if they still sell them, but they used to have this line of paints that were just called dry. I found them almost always to be a piece of chalk inside of a plastic, pot. They were almost every one I've ever bought has just been like really dry. Like, wow, this is dry. This is chalk. This is not going to work out for me, and I don't know why that is. So I've never bought any of the dries since then. I tried their dry white one time, and I'm like, yep, that's hard. There's nothing liquid inside there. So yeah, that's just a thing. But I do generally, if a paint is very fluid, I like to let it sit and kind of dry out a little bit in the air for, like I said, 4 or 5 minutes before I start using it. It depends, though. It also depends on what you're going for. If you're going for a very smooth kind of gradient, you're going to use one of those big fat makeup brushes. Then you don't necessarily need to wait too long. But for small areas, if you're trying to do like a little bit, if you've got a very, very, very liquid, let's say like the airbrush paint, the metallic airbrush paint from Vallejo, like chrome, and you're going to use that on some chainmail hanging off of an orc's butt or something like that, and you want to dry brush it because you primed the guy black or whatever. You don't want a really liquid paint for that because it will streak a lot more as you're dry brushing, no matter how much you wipe off. So in that situation, I would actually use one of the thicker metallics, like Games Workshop metallic, or even in like Vallejo non-airbrush metallics. They can also be kind of thick, and they work a lot better for dry brushing. But really super thin, especially when you're just hitting certain spots with like a regular small little dry brush, not great. But even a wet paint with a big, fat, huge, like concealer style or whatever they call them, or blending style makeup brush, those will work really well, I think. So, will the board size be different for Combat Patrol? Yeah, it will be smaller. It will be, let me go look at it real quick here. You guys can't see this, but I'm doing it. It's basically like I think it's 44 by 60? No. I swear to God, I read someplace it's just 2 Kill Team boards stuck together. 44 by 30 is what it is, yes. So yeah, it's 44 by 30 is evidently the Combat Patrol size. So that is 2 because the kill team boards are 22 by 30. So if you put two of them side by side, they'll still be 30 across, or 30 long, but it'll be 44 across instead of 22 across. So yeah, it's basically two combat patrol boards stuck together, and then boom, there you go. So that's fine. A power cap level on units in combat patrol will be good, but they've said that knights can play. So yeah, that'll be interesting. That'll be interesting to see. Like, well, can you get a knight into 500 points? I mean, I guess maybe those little, what are those, warglaives or whatever, those little kind of AdMech chicken walker dudes. Those guys, I guess you could fit in. But can you fit a normal knight into a 500-point army? Because that'd be weird to just have one. Well, you still wouldn't. I don't think you'd be able to. How would you fit a knight in? You know what I mean? Because you'd still need to have at least one HQ and at least, I think, one troop. Wouldn't you? That's what. Going back to. Yeah, the bare minimum you need is one HQ and one troop. And there is no spot, really, that I see for Lord of War or whatever. Huh, I haven't heard that. I guess I had thought I'd heard that someplace that you could bring in a knight, but I don't know how you would, because it doesn't seem like it would fit in a patrol detachment, and it also don't think I would barely think a knight would fit in 500 points. Let's see here. Sizes are 2, 4, 8 kill team boards. Yeah, that could be. 3 knight armigers. I guess you could go with armigers, sure. You can get one big knight into 500 points and nothing else. But then again, like I said, it doesn't seem like you'd be fulfilling the patrol detachment because you don't have an HQ or a... I mean, I guess your knight could be your HQ, but then you wouldn't have a troop. You don't need to have those with knights. Really? Well, that's weird. My GW dry paints are always jelly. Really? Mine are always like a piece of chalk. Should I dip a mixing stick in and give it a thorough swirl so it becomes cottage cheese, or should I keep it as a contiguous block of jelly? I would probably say to stir it. Generally, yeah. I would think that's it. Yeah. Knights have special rules. You can bring them. You can bring a super heavy auxiliary detachment. See, to kill team, that seems dumb. Or, sorry, combat patrol. It seems super dumb to kill team, but it seems kind of dumb to combat patrol. But, yeah, it'll be interesting. They did say that it was still going to be possible for knights to play. I was assuming they'd be able to bring a different detachment. Yeah, that's interesting. Knight Codex has rules to sidestep that stuff. I still want to build a knight eventually. I have built the Armiger, little smaller guy. I built one of those and painted it. It was fun. But I would like to do a big knight someday, soonish. Like I said, I own a kit. I just haven't figured out what I want to do with it yet. Yeah. Except for Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights, they can only fit in a super heavy detachment, but they can still take part in combat patrols. That seems weird. That really does. Dry paints are weird. You just stick a dry brush in there and you don't wipe any off. That doesn't... Really? That is weird. Yeah. I prefer to wipe it off because I want a little bit more control over the actual stuff. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I put ball bearings in each pot and then shake them up before use. Works great. It helps with the jelly. Interesting. I know that at my local shop they've got this rack of hobby stuff from Army Painter. And Army Painter, one of the things they sell now is just like a little blister pack, kind of, I don't know, clamshell thing or whatever that hangs on a hook. And it's just full of like basically like stainless steel ball bearings. So you can just dump them into your paint bottles, and then you can shake them way easier and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of a nice thing. I know some people prefer glass. I think I would feel as if the stainless steel ones would be probably not cheap, but they would have more mass, so they would move around back and forth a little bit better. The very bottom of the article says it's okay to take knights. Missions might punish them, but well, that'll be interesting. I mean, just from the aspect of maybe a fun little battle report, it might be fun to have basically like one knight versus like a regular combat patrol. That could be kind of fun. I could see that. Emily says, if you want to paint a knight, Adam, you should take a class with Vince. It's a fabulous time. I would love to hang out with Vince. I haven't hung out with Vince since February, sadly. I would love to hang out with him in person again. We were planning on getting together actually in September, not including even getting together at, say, Origins and Adepticon, Origins, Adepticon, Gen Con, and Nova. So yeah, I'm not gonna get very much Vince time this year. It's sad, but yeah. Let's see. I don't think that they thought this game mode through. Seems like they didn't rebalance anything for smaller game sizes other than lowering the board size. I don't know. I'm assuming that they've, like, from what I understand, this edition has probably been play tested specifically by outside forces. Forces sounds like a strong word, but by people outside of the organization. Let's say that it's been play tested more than, from what I understand, pretty much any other edition, most likely. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. It's what I'm looking forward to checking out, honestly, is to see how that works out. I'm going to try shaking my paints with my ultrasonic cleaner. I'll let you know how that goes. I don't know how well it'll go. Maybe, but I don't know. I've got a little mini paint shaker thing that you plug into the wall, and it weighs a ton, and it's really heavy. But you plug it in the wall, and you just put the paint on this. There's like a little cup on the top, and you just kind of press it down a little bit, and then it wiggles back and forth real fast, and that works pretty well. But like I said, it's very heavy. Strangely, for such a small thing, when you try to pick it up with one hand, you're just like, oh, I'll just move this over here, and you're like, oh, gee, it's just really dense. And it wasn't cheap particularly either, frankly. I got it on eBay. But there are other... There's like a thing called a vortex shaker. Vortex, not spinner, shaker, I think. That's like maybe $80, $90 I've seen before, and that will work well. There's a company that makes a little battery-powered thing where you just have a little strap. You put the bottle in there, you put the strap on there, and you turn it on, and it shakes it back and forth. That was designed, I think, a little bit more for nail polish studio people, but they also make one now that's like they've just basically rebranded and started focusing on getting painters to use it. There's a lot of different options. I've seen people take a jigsaw, like a normal, and then they will take a blade that goes inside the jigsaw and attach it to something, and they can put like wrap a thing or like a zip tie around their paint, and then shake the paint that way. There's all kinds of options you can do if you want to go down that road. Yeah. What did they change with Combat Patrol compared to previously, though? I don't understand why they claim it's balanced for all sizes now. I'm assuming it's got to be pretty much rules wide, like they've changed things that way, and that's what I'm interested in finding out about. Because you're right, like I said, back in the day when you played Combat Patrol, you had very specific rules you had to follow. Like you couldn't bring a vehicle that was bigger than this, or armor-wise. You couldn't, bring models that were more than 2 wounds. You couldn't do... There's a lot of things you couldn't do, and it seems like, at least with Combat Patrol now, they're just like 500 points and less. Knock yourself out, see what happens. And so that'll be very interesting to see whether certain armies are going to be on the back foot because they're not as good at running in low point values versus others, and it might just not be that balanced at all. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested, definitely interested. Vortex Centrifuge. I don't think that the one that I've seen is a centrifuge. It doesn't spin things around. It's just like a weird little, I don't know, it's like a little cone sort of thing. It's got like a rubber indentation at the top, and you put your paint in and push down, and then the whole thing wiggles or vibrates or whatever, and that shakes your paint. It might be called a Vortex Mixer. That might be the thing. Electric Toothbrush. I don't know if I've had electric toothbrush as a thing to use for paint mixing, but it might work. Lab quality stuff is the way to go. Probably not cheap, though, in that situation, though, too. Just put a bar clamp and a jigsaw instead of a blade. Works like a dream. If you can find the bar clamp that's small enough, or if you have a grinder, I guess, and you could grind it down. But yeah, I've seen that, too. That's also a way. Excuse me. Am I the only one who uses a tool to transfer a blob of paint onto a blister pack and then adds water to get the consistency I need? I mean, I usually, when I'm trying to transfer from a pot, let's say, I've got paint in a pot, a Citadel pot, and I want to put it on my wet palette. I learned from Sam years ago, he doesn't dip the paint generally into the pot, he doesn't dip the bristles of his brush into the pot and then transfer it to the wet palette. He uses the back of the brush and dips it into the pot and then puts that onto the wet palette and then like wipes off the back of the brush with a piece of paper. Because then that way you're not getting too much paint into your bristles, potentially up into where the metal part hangs down. I don't have a brush here. No, I took those brushes downstairs. But yeah, so Other people, I know my friend Eenie Minis on Twitch, she uses a really small little, they're called a palette knife, and it's usually aimed a little bit more towards the fine art kind of oil painting type crowd, but it's just basically like a little wooden handle with like a little short little, it's almost like a little tiny pointed spatula, and so you can just kind of dunk that into your paint if you're using pots. If you're using dropper bottles, you don't need to, because you just drop it directly onto the wet palette. So there's that. Eklo says, longtime lurker, welcome. Where'd it go? Squad-based minis game for a first timer. Squad-based. So do you mean like where you move squads, or you mean it's as small as a squad? If it's as small as a squad, I would tell you to look at Kill Team from Games Workshop. I would tell you to look at Star Breach from Slow Death Games. I would tell you to look at Planet 28, which is from, I don't remember the name of the company, but just look up Planet 28 on Google, and you should probably find it. It's a game. Planet 28 game. Type that into Google, you'll find it. I can't think of it. It starts with an M, but I can't think of the name of the company. The guy who wrote it, his name is Nick. So there's that. If you're talking about small but moving squads around, well, Age of Sigmar can be that way. Like if you play at 1,000 points, it can be like that way. Technically, Combat Patrol from the new 40K will basically be that way. The upside to using something like Age of Sigmar is that I think you wouldn't have to buy codexes or army books or whatever they're called. So that would save you money. All the War Scrolls are available for free download on the Games Workshop website. I can't think of any other games that are off the top of my head. You folks in chat, if you've got one, let them know. But definitely look into like some of those type. I mean, and if you want to get into like historical, like Bolt Action is technically squad based, but still like only about 30 models. So yeah, there are options, but it depends on what you're looking for. People, again, like I said, other people who are smarter than I am right now. If you want to put it in the chat, that'd be great. Yeah, I see someone mentioning Bolt Action. Billy Mark says it's called the Typhoon paint mixer. The guy repurposes some machine to make it. That's what I have. Yeah, as I have a Typhoon, and it weighs a ton, but it works quite well. Yeah, and it is. He buys these, gets these machines used, and then takes them all apart, redoes all the internals, repaints them, the whole deal, and then sells them to painter nerds. And yeah, I really like the Typhoon, but it is not cheap, and it is a monster. It's heavy, but that's what it's called. Let's see. I use Tamiya or Tamiya. I can never get that right, whether I'm going one way or the other. Paint stirrers, most useful tool I've ever bought. I have a Badger paint stirrer somewhere. You put batteries in it. It's got like a little thing that comes out. It's like a handle that you put the batteries in, and there's a button, and there's a little thin little piece of metal that comes out, and then it's this little kind of like metal round disky sort of thing that's sort of bumpy, and then you just put it into the paint and turn it on, and it spins around real fast. I don't think I've actually ever used it. Like it wouldn't fit. Well, it would fit in a GW pot, but that's about it. Like it wouldn't fit much else than anything else. But I bought it at the time, and then it was like $8, and I brought it home, and I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm going to use this for. So I got that going for me, which is nice. Daniel Beam says that Marvel is great, but very expensive. Kind of rough for new players trying to dip their toes. The starter's not terrible, but it doesn't come with a lot of terrain. Like it comes with a little tiny bit of terrain, so that's kind of a thing. I haven't looked a ton at the add-ons, like the extra stuff. Like I got the Hulk one and the Venom one, but they came in the Adepticon VIG box, so I don't know what the prices on those were. I was at a shop recently, and I was like walking around a local shop, and I had my mask on, and I did see they've got a kit that makes like a truck, like for terrain. It was like $32, I think. And I was like, oh, well, that's not bad. You get these two trucks here for $32. That's a pretty good deal. Well, if you read the back of the box real closely, you can build one of these two trucks. You can either build the garbage truck or the chemical tank truck for $32. And then I was like, oh, yeah, that's not a great price in my opinion for that. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I was like, if it's two vehicles for $32, then they're just pieces of terrain that you're not going to do anything with other than that. They're just going to sit there. Great. But if it's just one truck, which you get the option, then that seems a little bit more expensive, in my opinion. 5 Parsecs from Home, which I swear I've heard of, which is a sci-fi game, and 5 Leagues from the Border, which is fantasy. I've not heard of that one. Are great, easy to play squad level games from Nordic Weasel Games, says David Moffat. See, you're getting answers right there in the chat because we got smart people in the chat. Kelly says, question, do you like Necromunda? I love the models. I own pretty much all the models for Necromunda, just about, I think. Maybe not all the models, but almost all the models. The rule set is okay, but not really too many other people around me play it, unfortunately. So, but I love the models. I use them for kit bashing all the time. Let's see. I made a paint shaker of an old plastic body Black & Decker jigsaw and a small bar clamp. The bar fits in the place of the jigsaw blade, and I used a nail as a pin to lock it and bent it to hold. Nice. Well, that makes sense. Hey, Torch. Hi, gang. Did I miss everything? Well, some. We got about 15 minutes left here. Let's see here. It's all fun and games. It's weird. People seem surprised these are expensive. Somewhat intensive minigames don't explode in popularity. Crisis Protocol is niche. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who like Marvel stuff. I've had some friends of mine who I know who play HeroClix who were super interested in the Marvel Crisis Protocol until they looked at what it takes to build and paint the models. And then they were like, well, what if I pay somebody to build and paint the models? And I'm like, you certainly can. You can find a commission painter. And then I don't know what happened after that. I haven't seen that guy in a while because, pandemic. But yeah, so it's, I don't know. I don't know if people are playing it in my local area much. Again, nobody's playing much anything right now, like at stores, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. I've not seen a lot about it in my local area. I picked up the starter just before the pandemic because I was at the GAMA Expo, the Game Manufacturers Association Expo in Reno, Nevada, like in very, very early March, just before everything went squirrely. And I was in a thing, and there was a guy who owns a store in the Indianapolis area, nice guy, and we were talking about the game. He was talking about how he really likes it and the reasons why and all that kind of stuff, and he kind of helped to convince me to at least pick up the starter to take a look at it. So, but that's about as far as I've gotten because I've been working on the basement and lots of other projects, but I do want to start getting in there and painting some of those models. I've heard they're not particularly fun to build, but and I probably won't paint them very accurately to either a comic book or a movie, although I'm probably a little bit more likely to go into the movie style look versus the comic book look. But there you go. Saber's Edge says, if Crisis Protocol had been 28mm figures, I would have been on it like white on snow. Huge Marvel fanboy. I just don't want to deal with oddball scales for scale creep. The way it was explained to me, and this kind of makes sense because that was my opinion as well. I'm like, here's the problem. It's 40mm, so all the guys are kind of bigger, which I get. You want to have this sort of big comic booky, larger than life kind of look. But then what about terrain? And the way that it was explained to me, and I think I've had seen other people in here explain it as well, is that at 40mm scale, you're basically looking, I think, at O scale for trains, like model railroading. So because of that, you can get terrain not from the gaming side of the hobby, but from the model railroad side of the hobby. A lot of that stuff is not fantastical, gothic, sci-fi, fantasy. It's just gas stations and, apartment buildings and stuff like that, which makes sense and fits better with the theme in a lot of situations for Marvel. And in some situations, those things are very quick and easy to build and easy to paint. Sometimes they're pre-colored. There's a lot of different options out there. I've done some looking into like different scale model railroading style terrain that you can then use for something like for the Marvel Lunchtime Rainbow, whatever, Crisis Protocol. So that was kind of the selling point, because when he explained it to me that way, then I was like, oh, actually, that's a good point. Yeah, I could see that. So that was what kind of got me to tip over a little bit, at least to buy the starter. I mean, the starter was $90, $100. I forget exactly. Yeah, but yeah. So let's see here. I just put a mixing ball in my jelly dry paint and put it on the vortexer, turned it into cottage cheese. Actual cottage cheese? I wouldn't eat that cottage cheese. But if it is cottage cheese-like, that is, I guess, better for dry brushing? I mean, it's supposed to be for dry paint. That's the whole point. So, yeah. Some of the MCP models are a pain to build. The game is really fun, though. I love the interactive terrain. Yeah, like the ability to like throw a car and stuff like that is, I think, cool. That's interesting stuff. Hey, Matthew Sears, how you doing? Let's see here. Thomas says, just wanted to say thank you because I started building and painting 40K models at the start of the pandemic, and your channel helped me a lot. Greetings from Germany. Well, greetings. Thank you. Thanks. I'm glad to hear it. Glad to hear you're getting into it. It's like I said, I really like it. It's a fun hobby, and it's a lot of fun. And also fun. Hey, Aaron. Cool Guys Nation. Crisis Protocol fits perfectly with the GW terrain, and you can get terrain from Menards. See, I don't know if it fits perfectly with GW terrain. At least I feel like the scale is not quite right. Also, the buildings are just like crazy gothic whatnot, and then you got Iron Man, and you're like, to me, that's weird. Now, Menards, that's true. Menards is, it's a relatively kind of Midwest, big chain hardware store type place, and for whatever reason, the story I've been told is that the guy who originally started it was super into trains. And so you can go to nearly any Menards and buy like O-scale terrain that is already built and painted. Like there's a Starbucks building, there's a Taco Bell, there's like a little brewery. There's all, and then and not only that, but they have like lights, and you could put batteries in them, and then they'll light up and all kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, if you've got Menards near you and you're interested in Marvel, the game, you could. It's not cheap. Like you're looking at sometimes as much as $100 for a completely fully painted building that lights up inside and stuff like that. But if you're into that and you want to drop a little bit of money on a nice looking building, they work really, really well. So. Tyler asks, did Frostgrave 2.0 drop? Hopefully they fixed all the magic stuff. I've not, no, I don't believe it had. Well, I don't think so. I don't think it has yet. Look at that haircut on Adam. It's true. I did finally get a haircut at my local haircuttery. Tyler asks, did I miss the Combat Patrol talk? Basically, yes. What you can do is I mainly just went through to, let me push this button here. So I went to the Warhammer community website. They had an article that went up on Friday about Combat Patrol, and I just kind of talked about my thoughts about like what they were saying in here, talking about the specific missions, talking about the patrol detachment concept, and then they've got a bunch of sample kind of like, oh, this is a bunch of armies that you could use, or like almost like army lists, but like light army lists. They're not getting super deep into it, but they're showing you, oh yeah, this is the, roughly the right amount of Gene Stealer cults, roughly the right amount of, whatever. And a lot of these are based off of like this Chaos Space Marine list for Combat Patrol is basically just a start collecting box. Not all of it, but all of it comes from a start collecting box. So you could just with one box start going to town. So that's the concept there. So yeah, check that article out on the Games Workshop website, or sorry, Warhammer community website, technically, and then you'd find that stuff out. So, let me see. Very Midwest. I'm up in the Northwest. You can't find them anywhere. Back home in Northeast, they were all over the place. Yeah, Menards is it's interesting. Is the Fez safe and comfy? Well, one of them is. It's at the studio, and the other 4 are mostly in the bedroom, I think, or in the basement. Maybe a couple of them in the basement and a couple are in the bedroom. You gotta spread them around. You don't want them to, you don't want them to be all taken out by one single grenade or meteor strike or lightning, fireball, whatever. Anyway, let's see. I think Frostgrave 2nd Edition will be out in the next couple of months. I mean, I guess with the pandemic and stuff, it's hard to say, but I think that was their plan. That's true. John says, I've never really played any of the games. I just love collecting and painting the minis. See, and that's the great thing about the hobby too, is that if you are not really interested in playing, there's still plenty of really cool models out there from all kinds of different companies that you can sit down and paint just for enjoyment. Maybe you want to make like display pieces, like little tiny dioramas or things like that. There's a lot of different options out there, which is very cool. I like that concept. I just picked up a model that I don't think I will have any use for in a game, but I really want to paint it. Reaper, I was flipping through, again, either Instagram or Facebook, I don't remember which one, but I came across somebody on one of the sites, one of the things I follow, who was painting up, so it's from Reaper Bones Black, and it is this sort of like big hulking sort of troll sort of big guy with big armor. He's got a big honking club with a big head on it, and then his head is just like a skull, and it's almost like it's just this close to being a cartoon skull. It's just a really interesting kind of wackadoo looking sculpt, and I saw it and I was like, that's pretty cool. So I went and to the Reaper website, because I don't know anybody. Well, I don't really know anybody around here who sells Reaper Black. I've seen it in places, but not in local stores. So anyway, I went to the Reaper website and I was looking at it, and they're like, oh, well, for $50 or whatever, you get free shipping. So I was like, all right. Well, so then I bought, they also now, under Reaper Black, they make a bunch of dumpsters. Like they make like a dumpster, and they make like a 10-foot shipping container and a 20-foot shipping container. So I bought, and I've been wanting to get some decent shipping containers for a while. So I picked up a couple of each of the shipping containers and a couple of the dumpsters, and then I hit it was like $52, something like that. So I got free shipping. So that stuff showed up. So I built that model yesterday, and one of each of the little terrain pieces. So the terrain pieces will probably be something that I'll start working on my Twitch streams that I'll be doing on Friday mornings going forward. And I'll be painting and streaming on the Twitch. So if you're interested, go follow me over there. You get a notification when I start and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, but yeah, I'll probably be working on those dumpsters and doing some weathering and rusty stuff and all that kind of junk for fun, and be using those in different places, different game systems. They might show up in a couple of battle reports. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, but that big kind of weird cartoon skull-headed ogre type dude. Yeah, I don't know what I would use him for exactly, but I just still want to. I'm still going to paint him because I think he's just fun. I just don't know that he'll become a gaming piece per se, but we'll see. I don't know that I would. I would probably still put him on like a regular round base, and all that kind of stuff. So I could use him as a gaming thing. I don't know that I'm quite to the point in my own personal progress where I'm going to put him on like a big cool plinth and have him like be like a display thing. But you never know. I guess I haven't decided completely yet. So there's that. The Maggot Crown Ogre, or the Ogre Maggot Lord. Yeah, that sounds right. I know he had the word maggot in there someplace, but it's a cool model. I liked him. Deaf by French Fry says, glad I could catch the last 5 minutes of the stream today. Well, these things happen. It'll be a rerun that you can watch the whole thing if you want to while you're hobbying, or listen to it, whatever. It usually goes up about a half hour after the show is done. I think YouTube has to chew on it for a while and process, and then it becomes a video. Sometimes it's quicker. Eric says, I can't wait until after the pandemic and see what all the various developers have created while in lockdown. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see too. I agree. It'll be interesting to see what kind of those folks are coming from. Yeah, definitely. Reaper Black is a stiffer plastic. Yeah, it is. And like the Reaper bones, the normal bones, like the white stuff, is pretty bendy. And, your mileage may vary, but it's not necessarily the best. But it's also super cheap, so that's the whole point. The Reaper Bones Black is actually not black. It's actually a darker gray, but it is a harder plastic, so it's a little bit easier to work with, maybe from the hobby point of view. On the other hand, like that Maggot King Ogre, whatever the heck he is, like I had to put him together. And usually with bones, you don't have to put them together. They usually come pretty much built. Him, I had to like slot his head in and slot his arms in and slot his legs in. It wasn't hard, but I still had to put him together, and it's just because of the difference in material, I'm pretty sure. Let's see here. Now I've seen them, I have to mail order Menards HO buildings for my Fallout Gaslands games. Thanks, Adam. Well, just make sure that you got the right scale, but yeah. Because they are, like for normal 28 millimeter, they seem a little large. So just keep that in mind. Is it worth it to get the 40K rulebook right now? I mean, if you want it for the lore and the painting guides and stuff like that, sure. Or if you can get it at a really good price. But literally ninth edition, the new book, should be coming out in July at some point. I'm not quite sure when, but it should be coming out in July. So if you might just want to wait, another month, and then go from there. So there's always a good time to build troops. Like, you're always going to need troops, generally, pretty much. So if you're thinking about getting into 40K and you to say, I really want to get into Eldar, I really want to get into Adeptus Mechanicus, I really want to get into Death Guard, go buy a box of troops and start working and building on them. And maybe don't do the entire box. Maybe like do just the regular, let's say you're playing Death Guard, just the guys with the bolters. Just work on a bunch of those. And then once you get the book, then you can, and the codex. Well, actually, now that I come to think of it, the codexes should generally be okay. So if you were to, let's say, go into Death Guard, if you bought the Death Guard codex and a Death Guard troop box, you'd be fine, probably. The points may change a little bit between 8th edition and 9th edition, but it won't be a huge deal. But you could easily sit down and go, okay, cool, I'm going to build a unit, and they're going to be this, and this guy's going to have a plasma gun or whatever. And then, go to... But I wouldn't go and say, okay, I'm going to build an entire 2,000-point list based off of the current 8th edition book when the 9th edition book is like a month away. I don't know that I would go down that road. I would maybe wait a little bit on that. So that's just what... that's my opinion. Menards has more than one scale. They have smaller scale too. Oh, I didn't realize that. That's interesting. Oh, wow. Nice. Randall says, I really like those Reaper dumpsters. Yeah, they're really kind of cool, actually. I'm not crazy easy to build, but pretty easy to build. So there's that. Joseph says, how have I not found Menards before? OMG. I mean, if it's not in your local area, it's not in your local area. Menards is a big, I was going to say it's like Fleet Farm, except that, you guys don't know what Fleet Farm is if you don't live in the Midwest either, and specifically just like Wisconsin-y, kind of. But yeah, it's like a big hardware kind of place, but they have lots of stuff, lumber and lighting, and it's like a Lowe's or a Home Depot, but it's a little bit more localized, and also for some strange reason has, railroad train stuff, but not a lot, mainly just terrain that I think that they get built for them. I'm kind of surprised there's not actually just a Menards building. I suppose it would be humongous, though. It would be way big. You'd have to, that wouldn't work out very well. So, all right. Well, folks, it's about 11 o'clock, so at least my time, my neck of the woods. So thanks again for coming by. I hope people are looking forward to, if you're interested in Combat Patrol, I hope I was able to maybe help you with that interest, or say, maybe that's not what you're looking for. If you didn't really know much about Combat Patrol but were thinking about it, I hope I was able to at least push you in the right direction and put a little bit of light on the subject, as it were. So yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm going to be streaming on Twitch. I did it last Friday, or 2 days ago. I did it yesterday as well, as part of the Virtual Gaming Con with Board Game Geek and Dice Tower. And I will start doing it every Friday morning going forward. I'll be sitting and painting and talking to people in chat. And I don't know how long I'll be doing it each time. I don't know if I'm going to do 2 hours or 3 hours, or I'm not sure yet. Still kind of working on that. Still trying to figure out the tech, getting better at that, but it's not too bad. If you want to get a vague taste for what I'll be doing, you go to that Twitch channel, follow over there. You can see a couple of the VODs, as they call them, the video on demand, which is basically the older episodes. You can see those from the last 2 days and just kind of check out and see like yesterday's. I think worked out pretty well, especially audio-wise. I think it worked better. So give that a look, see what you think. But again, thanks for everybody for coming by, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. And thanks for watching.